Hello everyone, my name is Ronnie Philip, and I'm gonna explain you a little bit about sticky webs and LilCup. Now, the first thing I want to explain is that I already made a video on this, however, I'm gonna try to cover it better in this video, because that video was too long, it didn't cover it properly, and this video will probably be as optimal as possible. So first thing I want to point out is how viable is sticky webs. Sticky webs is actually more viable than what would be considered offense in LilCup, specifically because the way offense exists in LilCup to not be prone to, say, Ammonite, fletchling, or something similar to that, would basically mean you would need to adapt your team in a certain way to that. For example, run Sash Abra, Magnemite, stuff like that, and generally in that kind of way, sticky webs becomes one of the most effective offensive playstyles in basic terms of it constantly keeps the pressure by sacking something and just getting off the pressure again and just obliterating something. Playing preservative is more for balanced, and while that can also be established with sticky webs, it is somewhat known to be somewhat less superior. Right now there is a big twist in that regard because balanced teams, especially with Snivy, there is a very big twist between that, where you can go with balance or you can go offense, or some way that would not include Snivy, bulky offense. However, that's a really odd one that has not been defined at all yet, and that mostly resolves around either Spinnerack or Suwaddle, and or Suicidal Surskit. However, that would be really stupid. But that's a really weird one, because normally Suicidal Surskit is your ideal setter in every kind of team form. So without further ado, let me actually get into it and explain you why this is. First of all, we have to say, we have Suicidal Surskit. Why is this thing the best setter? First of all, 17 speed. Second of all, it's able to effectively set other kind of things. For example, Rain Dance, it can counter lead rock types, it can possibly pose a type even against the common pivot that is Minfu. Basically, with combination of also 17 speed and its decent typing, it is able to bypass most of its issues. Now, it still has the same issue of every other of the setters, being it's frail, it's not durable, similar to Spinnerack, and it still lacks offense. So the only thing it has is some decent speed. 17 is enough for balance, but it just happens that's enough to be suicidal setter for sticky webs on a reliable term of teams, because once it goes up, the idea is to preserve it with this thing, either with offense or balanced pressure. Balanced pressure would be a ghost type and poniard, because that would discourage defog and rapid spinning respectively. But yeah, as for offense, you basically just sack something and just constantly try to pressure out the opponent and not being able to just rapid spin away. If anything, you will allow him to rapid spin after you know you are safe to kill him with your durable Pokemon, for example, Snivy. Say he only has a water or a rock type without anything to lure that out. But that's for Surskit. Now, Spinnerack is a bit of an odd one. It's not commonly seen, though there are a good amount of teams. Now, the thing about Spinnerack is that Spinnerack has some decent defenses. It can run a defensive set with like 23 HP, 14 defense, I think, and 12 special defense, I think it was. But I'm not too big of a fan of that. You can run Toxic Spikes, Poison Jab, Mega Horn, Sticky Webs. Ideally, I'd just run Toxic Spikes and Sticky Webs, because that's its primary niche in my opinion, that combination. And then we have Suwaddle, and Suwaddle is a bit of a weird one. Suwaddle, the way I use Suwaddle is with synthesis. And specifically, that kind of synthesis is what makes it that effective in my opinion. And without that synthesis, it would be a bit odd to value, as it has defensive pressure, it has the ability to take on certain threats, but it also has one of the worst defensive types in the game, and it's that what holds it back the most. Its coverage is decent, its special attack is bad, but it's that kind of combination that I really want to pressure on when I'm saying Swaddle. Now it's a bit of a weird Pokemon. I will discourage saying this Pokemon should not be used. I will just say you should not use this thing. Just try to focus on Surskit and maybe if the niche is suited, Spinarak. Now let's just go into the argument of, okay, what would punish Sticky Webs? Because if it's such a strong type, what would it really give you? Well, just to give you a comparison, Snivy can really just punish those kind of teams. It is one of the most threatening Pokemon in that regard, because once Sticky Webs goes up, this thing gets +1 speed boost, and now is one of the most reliable revenge killers in the entire game, because it constantly has a +1 speed boost. The Choice Scarf set, which is bad, can work for Snivy, and that by itself says a lot. But the biggest issue with that is you don't have your hidden power coverage directly at hand. And now you basically do. Combined with reliable recovery, the ability to put up a substitute, ability to glare, you get my point. Besides that, this Pokemon is very much known for having very little effective answers. But yeah, that's something you definitely need to build for. Then we have Ghastly, as well as just look out for before putting up Sticky Webs. If you see Snivy and a partner combined, never put up Sticky Webs in my opinion, even if you have the best advantage versus it. Don't. Many teams are not able to effectively take on that specific combination, and many teams just don't have that kind of balanced structure versus those kind of things. Then we have Ghastly. Ghastly is a problem regardless. Ghastly, when you see a Ghastly, you can still put up Sticky Webs, it's just that Ghastly doesn't care and will still be a threat, even if you don't put it up. Ghastly, this is a very odd set, this is a defensive set, which is not standardized right now. But this is one of the most threatening sets in my opinion, mostly because of how it works around everything besides Ponyard. And specifically Ponyard, you are not gonna stand that in when you see a Ghastly and you know that he might also have a form of rapid spinning or a form of defog, I should say, or something else to threaten that you possibly need Ponyard for, because you know Ponyard could potentially just die by mispredicting just one turn. But yeah, and this thing really just works around very well with this kind of set, because this set basically just preys upon that certain weakness. It can even take a knockoff from Pokemon like Mifu, who are your more common switch-ins on these kind of teams, to versus it. That is the biggest issue. Now we have Fletchling. Fletchling is a Pokemon that's an issue regardless. I don't even need to explain the set because both sets are an issue. Basically, just Sword Dance, Acrobatic, you just need Rock or Steel type. Or a combined or an electric type like Chinchou or somewhat Elekid. However, Elekid is not durable enough to do that effectively. Then we have Ponyard. Ponyard just obtains a +2 attack Sucker Punch, as well as Iron Head and knockoff damage. Essentially just a +2 from Sword Dance, and that's basically what it does every time it comes in, and it should not just be switched in. If you have a Ponyard versus these teams, don't. You are essentially wasting your Pokemon in my opinion. This thing is insane in that regard. It's very powerful, it's very well effective in being able to deal with those things. Not as effective as Snivy, of course, but still very effective against that. Then we have Vullaby. Vullaby it doesn't care. This specific set, because Ponyard actually discourages Vullaby, which is the most reliable defogger, this specific set can prey upon that. It can just U-turn out on Ponyard and just get into the offensive pressure for your team. This thing can literally turn around that offensive momentum and force the opponent into playing even more aggressive and preventing this from even coming in. Even though it has ways of preventing it from defogging, which essentially means you will need to double up on that kind of vision. Then we have Staryu. Staryu is one of the only things to remove hazards, to remove Sticky Web hazards, besides Archon of course. And this thing essentially, it just rapid spins, it can Psychic, it can Scald, it can 1v1 Surskits, even with, no. If it has Giga Drain, I think Surskit can win 1v1. If it doesn't, then it doesn't win 1v1. That's a real issue, because Psychic actually does like 1/3 of its HP, and then it can just scald at the end to finish off the damage. It can reliably beat most of the leads in sticky web teams, and this can actively discourage the use of sticky webs at the start of the match as well as later on in the match, and that's a really unique trait for a balanced Pokemon to do versus sticky webs. Now, good things on sticky webs. As you can already see, this is a comparable list, so that means it's self-counteractive. If you have a sticky web team that's full built, it would be able to beat other sticky web teams. Essentially, yes. Now, what kind of things am I mostly looking at? Good things on sticky webs. You don't see glare, Snivy. The reason why is I don't see the point in running glare at that point. You can run substitute and synthesis. Substitute basically allows you for a safe turn, more offensive capability, and especially for Snivy, this is insanely good. Especially this set. This is the set that I and someone else tested. Shout out to Fuban. With another team that I made, Sticky Snivloon, which was when Drifloon was with the Will-O-Wisp set. Also, this set, I'm gonna post it down in the links below. You can just use it on Gen 7 when the new games have come out, because that will be an effective team. Once Pokemon like... actually, it will be pretty decent against even Sneasel in that regard. Huh, interesting. But yeah, let's just go to Pokemon like Ponyard. Oh yeah, Sneasel won't even be unbanned, right? It's combined with Cider and Swirlix are all banned. All these three are banned. Then we have Ponyard. Ponyard's utility is being able to discourage defogging, is able to effectively check flying types like Fletchling, it is able to check Pokemon like Shell Smashers, like Shelder especially, and stuff similar to that. It is a very reliable Pokemon overall. The fact that it discourages defog is just an insane thing on its own, and the fact that it's able to do all those other things that are able to traditionally beat sticky webs, that's a great thing. I don't see why you shouldn't put it on your team. Basically, these two combined with Surskit is your standard core, actually. You can also have Alakid plus Surskit. The guy that talked to me yesterday dropped that, and I was like, yeah, it's a thing, but yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of it, mostly because it's a pretty frail Pokemon. It doesn't have that great defense, it only has 21 HP, 10 defense, and it needs to run Life Orb in order to effectively deal with opposing Pokemon. It can check Pokemon like Fungus, it can switch into those Pokemon even though it takes a lot of damage thanks to Slush Bomb. It can. It also has Psychic plus Life Orb damage coming from 16 special attack. That is going to be able to almost one-hit KO Fungus if I remember correctly. After Stealth Rock, that is a one-hit KO, I think. Then we have Ghastly. Ghastly can run... I recommend you run a set with Substitute, for the obvious reason of it's just so reliable. That's all I need to say. Then we have Ponyta. Ponyta is a bit of an odd one. I put that up myself for the argument of it's the go-to way for a balanced team to effectively beat Snivy, Fletchling, Ponyard, opposing flying types, all that kind of stuff that traditionally beats sticky webs reliably. Then we have Omanyte. Omanyte is more for your offensive standard team as well as Alakid. This Pokemon basically... Also, I forgot to say, Ghastly, the fact that it's a ghost type doesn't mean it discourages the rapid spinning. In fact, Drillbur is able to check it reliably. Well, not reliably, it's able to check it. Pokemon like Staryu are able to beat it 1v1. Other rapid spinners have access to a strong way of knockoff, and they probably also take a hit from you, especially Pokemon like Bulkier, Sandshrew, even Kabutops, I think, takes a hidden power fight, if I remember correctly, with Eviolite. Takes massive damage though. And Aqua Jet no, Aqua Jet doesn't kill, what I'm saying. But then we have Omanyte. Omanyte is just your standard answer against Fletchling, also your own way of shell smashing, providing even more offensive support. At 13 speed it basically hits 20 speed after sticky webs basically. Which is a great thing, basically it speed ties Diglett at that point. Even though Sticky Webs is essentially a +1 boost, this allows it to speed high Pokemon like Diglett thanks to the lower calculation that is used against Diglett. And that's a great thing, honestly. Now, going a bit further, I'm going to talk about a sample form. This has Surskit, Pawniard, and Snivy. This is your 3 Pokemon core. Then we have other filler Pokemon like Mienfoo who can provide pivot. You can also run defensive Mienfoo, which will allow you to deal better against Omanyte, which is another way of dealing with Sticky Webs because of the speed boost. Though you do hit a very odd speed here, where 18 speed Pokemon are, 19 speed Pokemon are able to speed high you, which is another point that I made with Ponyta. If you run Wild Charge, basically you are able to get off damage against Omanyte, and then get off damage against it again after a -1 boost with a potential speed die. That alone means it's not complete setup bait against Omanyte. What else do you need from this thing? That's one of its best answers that traditionally it needs to run Flame Charge for, meaning it will be setup bait, and now it's not anymore. That's just a lot at once in my opinion. But okay, sample form. In this team I run Drillbur, which is a bit of an odd Pokemon on Sticky Web teams, however it is much better for the balanced approach, or a bit more offensive approach is possible, however that would be more of a setup Pokemon rather than a Rapid Spinner. For the balanced approach it's more a Rapid Spinner than anything. And then we have another example that I made. This is a quick made example, don't just take it like a sample. This is an example. This is where you get the core of like Ghastly with the with this set. This is a really weird set. This is basically the combination of a bulky set as well as the Toxic Spice Ghastly sets. Basically this one takes advantage of Hex and Venoshock in combination because these are more powerful moves, effectively able to wall break even special walls effectively and deal massive damage. It's an argued for thing to begin with, and the combination between Surskit and Ghastly is a bit odd type wise. Even if you're running the Sash set, it would be a bit odd, especially with the coverage options. But yeah. Stardew as a Rapid Spinner. Magnemite, allowing you to deal with Fletchling, allowing you to deal with opposing Smashers. Ender basically allows you to, even after Stealth Rock damage, you can just Ender and you're ready to check at least one more time. I would recycle if I was you, but eh. That's my point. I would recycle just to prevent myself from being too prone to it. Then we have Mienfoo. Mienfoo can beat opposing fight types as well and other stuff. And lastly, a defensive team, and this is a bit of an odd team. Just keep on other ghost type Pokemon like Pumpkaboo, Super Pumpkaboo Small can also be used. Small obviously for more offensive teams. And Suwaddle is a really odd choice. I don't really want to go too much into it because it's a really weird team that has yet to be used a bit more, maybe refined a lot more, especially with Drillbur. I'm not happy with that thing, but okay. And that's pretty much Sticky Webs in a nutshell. I also want to say that some other Pokemon that you might see on Sticky Webs, for example, Bunnelby. Fungus not that much, it's a really odd Pokemon in my opinion on Sticky Web teams, but Bunnelby especially is a really offensive trending Pokemon with a lot of offensive utility. Let me actually go to the first page of the Viability ranking just to show you a little bit about those kind of Pokemon that are very good in it. Pokemon that traditionally lose based on speed, Pokemon like Corphish, Pokemon like Archon, which currently lacks a lot of things in my opinion, though it's still worth the A- rank honestly. Pokemon like Drillbur. Oh, Drillbur is finally A-. Pokemon like Omanyte, which needs Cell Smash in order to effectively work. Snubbull, not as much, but you can also put it on because it's just a great Pokemon to put on in general. Where's the other one? Then we have Wall Breakers, Pokemon like Bunnelby dropped down. Huh. Bunnelby, Granidos, Elekid, Houndour even. Mostly those kind of Pokemon. I've yet to experimentate a bit more about the balance utility Pokemon like Larvesta can provide. So right now, don't want to go too much into that. So without further ado, let's just end it on a high note here. If you want to check out this team, I leave down the link below of the RMT. This will also explain you a little bit more about these kind of Pokemon, their utility, and why I put those on the team. So I hope you enjoy that. Right now.